That's right.
Okay. So, again, as everybody's coming in, my name is Sean. Kyle is our assistant coach. For those of you who just came in, we had a big jump of people that came in. Let's go ahead and get started with our webinar for today. Okay, guys? All right. So first and foremost, I want to start with the most important thing on this picture, which is my family on the left. So this is the little girl who's right in front of me is my oldest daughter, Nora. And then in front of my wife is my younger daughter, Lila. And then my beautiful wife is there. And we are expecting our third girl. Yes, that's right. Severely outnumbered. But I love my ladies are awesome. They're great. And they do all the stuff in the dirt and in the yard with me. So it's fine. We go fishing. It's good. It's good stuff. So I have been coaching pre-PTs over the last decade, which is weird to say that. I feel really old saying that. But it's also cool at the same time to think like, wow, this has been such a big part of my life for the past 10 years. And when I was applying to physical therapy school, I was accepted into 5 of the 6 highly competitive programs I applied to. I ultimately chose to go to Northern Arizona University. For my undergraduate degree, I was at Brigham Young University in Provo, and I was the pre-PT club president there. And that is kind of where physical therapy application coach was born as an idea. We really focused, as a president, I thought it was good that we did all these meetings where we got to meet clinicians and things like that. But a lot of our members were having a hard time getting into school, which was kind of ironic for me. I was like, all right, this is a club, but why aren't we helping people get into school? So we kept some of those meet and greet meetings with clinicians, but most of our meetings focused on what can we do to help you improve your application so you can get into school, which is what matters more than just meeting people. And so then that led into physical therapy application coach, and I've been coaching applicants consistently ever since then. And in the last 3 years, performed nearly 1,000 application essay edits and almost 350 mock interviews performed. So it's been awesome. I know for total application essays edited, man, I got to be close to 1,200 to 1,500 at least, bare minimum. Mock interviews probably pushing, 450, 500 at least, as far as that goes. The clients that we've been working with, they're all across the country, and they've been accepted into 171 of the 300 DPT programs. That number continues to rise and to go up, which is super exciting. And when I was at Northern Arizona University, I was selected by the faculty to be a second year who was on the interview panel who would review admissions essays and then actually perform interviews, right? So let me clarify that. So we would review the essays of the people who were invited to attend interviews. That's a better way of saying that. And then we would actually perform the interviews with myself, a faculty member, and an alumni. So learned a ton from that experience, and it really helped shape and mold the coaching strategies that we share with you guys today. And besides doing physical therapy application coach, I am also a full-time physical therapist. I work for ATI Physical Therapy and work in a leadership mentorship role where I help new clinic directors. I've been a multi-site clinic director, done all that stuff. And I'm kind of I train new clinic directors to help them be successful while I'm there at the company. So really enjoyed my experience there. And now I'll kick it to Kyle.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. So as Sean mentioned, I'm Kyle. I've been coaching at Physical Therapy Application Coach now for around 3 years. Time has flown by. Seems just like yesterday I was in your guys' shoes applying for physical therapy school and on one of these webinars, just like you guys came out today. So that's awesome. I started doing behind the scenes work with Sean probably early. People didn't know me as much there, but then eventually grew into a coaching role. I've done probably around 75 mock interviews and edited around 50 essays over this 3-year period. And like I said, I've been in your shoes, on these webinars and just trying to get ahead. And this was the beginning of the best decision of my young professional life, honestly, coming here to Physical Therapy Application Coach. This was just giving me the keys and setting me in the driver's seat to taking control of my application. And we hope that you get the same value out of this sitting in your seats at home, wherever you're at today. by the way. Let us know in the chat where you guys are coming from. I see you guys are a little dull right now, but that's okay. It is a holiday weekend, so I'm sure everybody's chilling. But every time Sean brings out the figure too about how many programs we have gotten people into, it's just astounding to me seeing that as well. And the more people we can get into more programs, the better. So that's awesome. Through all of Sean's services, I learned all the process of becoming a PT and more. And not just doing that, but just doing it the smart way, right? Because there's people that go through this and they can set themselves up in pretty bad situation, actually, going through the physical therapy education system. But there's a smarter way to do it. We really try to preach it here. If you were on earlier here in the webinar, I said I'm from Michigan. A couple of pictures on there are what fall looks like in Michigan. There's a cider mill that we all like to go to just down the road here. And it is a great place to come. If you guys are ever in the Midwest and want to stop in Michigan in the fall, it's a great time. So highly recommend that. Some of the logos that I have up there, I have a community college background. So I started trying to go that route and saving some cash when I was going through my undergrad process, and it was a great decision. Anyone who hasn't done that route that's totally fine. Maybe you find yourself retaking some prerequisite classes or other classes. The community college route is a great way to go and save you some money in the long run. I got the Central Michigan logo up there as well. That's where I went to undergrad, and that's where I'm currently at in PT school. So fire up chips. I am a second year. I'm almost a third year for those who are wondering where I'm at. Getting there, close to the end already. So yeah, clinicals are coming up soon. And like I said, you guys, it will fly by. Like you're applying right now and you'll blink and you'll be in the same shoes I am. And then eventually where Sean's at too, so it'll come there. And then I guess the last thing I pretty much have on there is my CSCS. I decided to get that after I graduated my undergrad. So CSCS meaning your Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist certification. So that's kind of like certification that helps you work with athletes just beyond a regular personal training cert. And then through Sean's services, I got into 3 out of the 5 programs that I applied to. So anything I can do to help you get to that sort of success rate and beyond, if possible, that's what I'm here for.
That's crazy that Dr. McLaren is almost in the house. That's crazy.
I don't even know what to say.
Baby
about that,
Kyle
man.
is all grown up. Yeah. And he's not even kidding, you guys. Like how many years is that going to be now? I'm getting ready. I'm going into my 4th, going into my 5th year of practicing. So gee whiz, like grandpa geezer over here. Anyways, so our goals today, so that's enough about us. We're going to ask you guys why you're here today. And again, guys, the more engaged that you are during this webinar, the more you're going to get out of it. If you just kind of sit back and like let the information just gloss over you, you're not going to glean as much from it. So in a little bit, I'm going to ask you guys why you're here at this webinar today. And I want you to go ahead and put something in the chat. Let's get some energy, get some juice going here. So our goal is to help each one of you come away with some actionable steps that you can take to create a plan that will supercharge your pre-PT application. Okay. We want to demystify some common pre-PT myths and help you stop comparing yourselves to other applicants and act on truth instead of spinning your wheels. We want to answer your specific questions. So you can either put them in the chat while we're going through. If something comes to mind, just drop it in the chat box. If we don't get to it, we'll address it at the end. And we do have an Ask Us Anything section that will be at the end where you can address any questions as well. And we want to provide you all with a special promotional coaching offer that can take your application to the next level. Many of you may have seen our marketing that we've had either via our email list or on Instagram. PTCAS is coming. It is almost going to be here, right? In just over 2 months, basically. Yeah, right about 2 months. PTCAS is going to open in the middle of June to end of June, and it's time to roll. So if you're applying this next cycle, these next couple months are very important to you, and you want to be dialed in and make sure that you're maximizing your opportunities so you can have the most competitive application possible. Okay, so some housekeeping items. If the video freezes, just let us know in the chat. Don't freak out, because a couple hours after the webinar concludes, there will be a link that will be sent out, and the webinar link is available for 1 week, and you can rewatch the video there and everything will be clean in terms of like there's no lag and stuff like that. As we mentioned, put things in the chat box. Runtime for the webinar is going to be about an hour to an hour 15. We know it's a holiday weekend. Many of you guys are spending time with family, as you rightfully should be. So let's make the most of this, enjoy our time together, be dialed in, and get this done efficiently, but successfully. Okay, so it's time. Get those fingers hot in the chat box. Let's talk about, why are you guys here today? What brings you to a pre-PT application webinar on the Saturday before Easter, right? Of all things that you could be doing right now, why are you here? What questions do you have? What are you looking for? What are you concerned about? What are you feeling anxious or nervous about? Go ahead, put it in the chat box, so we can make sure we can address your specific questions today. And Kyle, I think while they're putting those in, I'm going to kind of ping off of you. When you first started coming to these webinars, what was it that you were looking for when you first started watching and observing and things like that?
So when I was in these guys' shoes, I had a lack of direction from anyone in my circle. I didn't know a lot of PTs. I didn't know a lot of people that I could really lean on. So this was like the end all be all one-stop shop for me. And I put a lot of faith in that just based on what I had seen in social media. And it turned out to be really helpful to me. It gave me a lot more, what would be the word, insight, I should say, into what I should be doing with my time. Because I feel like at this point, especially, it may seem like the illusion of I've got to just finish up my degree, but there's, I can wait for PTCAS to open later, but really there's a lot of action items that need to be taking place like right now if you want to like maximize your ability to succeed in your application process. So I think that was one of the big takeaways I remember having when I was sitting in their shoes a few years ago.
Awesome. Well, that leads in perfectly. Like we said, like PTCAS is going to open in a couple months. And a lot of the times people are thinking that when the application opens is when they should be hitting the ground. Like, I kind of look at it from the perspective of, if this is like a horse race, right? If you are waiting until the gates go down to get your horse in the stall, you're behind, right? So everything that we're doing these next couple months is to get you guys in the stall ready to go. So when that gate drops, you can hit the ground running, and you're off to the races, literally. So got a couple of responses here. Thank you guys. So from Miss B, glad that you're on today. Appreciate you coming on. I'm applying this upcoming cycle, and I'm a little nervous about my personal statement. I want to be as prepared as possible. So B, we will be talking about your personal statement, and that there are things that you can start doing. Just from our private conversations, I definitely feel like you're someone that we could continue to start refining that approach of what your essay is going to start to look like. So we are going to talk about that towards the end. Benson is applying this application cycle. Thanks for shouting out, Benson. Anything else that you are looking for help with specifically, let us know. Let's see here. And then we have Myra, currently a sophomore undergrad, looking to learn how to strengthen my application opportunities so I can take to improve my qualifications. Myra, that's great. You are like, good for you. Like, you want to talk about being ready to go. You are here at a webinar for people who are applying this cycle, and you can get ready to apply now. So that way, when next year comes around, you're ready to go, locked and loaded. So that's awesome. I love the people who are planning ahead, thinking ahead, because it's going to make your life so much easier. And Myra, so many of the things that we're going to share with you today, you have a long runway to get all of this lift underneath your application. So that's going to make your life a lot less stressful. So super glad that you're here today. Jocelyn, second year of my undergrad, heavily considering going into PT. I'm here to learn what to expect when applying to PT school. Jocelyn, great. It's awesome for you to kind of see what the lay of the land looks like. And, if you're still considering PT, that's totally fine. Like, we know there's lots of different jobs in the world. So if you are like, maybe I want to do PA, maybe I want to do PT, and you're still kind of weighing those options, learning about what the application process is, what's expected of you, is great to know, is this what I want to spend my time pursuing? So we're super glad to have you here as well. Kyle, were you going to say something? I feel like I kind of cut you off.
No, I was just going to shout out, especially Myra and Jocelyn. I mean, that's awesome that you guys are so young and coming to these things. Obviously, everyone who's applying coming up, that's awesome. You're going to get a ton of value out of this. But for the people that have showed up so early in your educational journey, that's going to be a huge advantage looking ahead, going forward for what you plan to do with your future. So good job.
For sure. All right, guys, as we mentioned, these next few months have consequences, right? And regardless, if you're Myra or Jocelyn and you've got a couple years before you apply, all the time that you have ahead of you has consequence. And what you decide to do with your time today is going to largely dictate what happens to your application in the future. What happens to your career in the future, right? So we here at Physical Therapy Application Coach, there's no shortcuts, there's no tricks, no gimmicks. There are tips and information. I guess there are tricks, things that we know that you need to be on the inside, right? But you have to do things in order to get results. And that's what we're talking about here, this domino effect of you got to tip the scales. At some point, you have to push that first domino to get things to roll. And so what we're going to talk about is often we know what to do, but we fail to act on that information. Please don't confuse knowledge with results. So in our information age where you have access to unlimited information about anything you want to know, a lot of times people feel like, oh, well, I know what to do, therefore I've done it. It's this illusion that we have in our society, and it's so sad. And it even translates over into academia, right? If you like, oh yeah, I remember that slide, but you don't actually understand the concept, like having a general knowledge of something is not mastery or results, right? Doing difficult or uncomfortable things is hard. And the fact that you're here today shows that you're ready to take action. So please, when you come away from today, you need to have a couple bullet points of things that you need to work on, right? Maybe we'll talk about a variety of different things. Maybe it's figuring out which programs you want to apply to. Maybe for B, it's figuring out what things you want to work on to get your essay ready to go. There's all kinds of different items that apply to what you need to do. But the main point of today is whatever it is that you think you need to do with your application, it's time to do something about it. Stop thinking, start doing. Okay. You may be asking yourself, where do I start? And you basically just have to start with where you are. And as a result of that, you need to honestly identify where you are as a pre-PT, right? Like, do you know your numbers? Do you know what your targets are? Do you know where you want to apply to physical therapy school? Having a good grasp on those things are going to help you the most, right? And then you're also going to come to a realization of what's the next big step that I'm afraid to take because maybe I'm scared or you don't feel like you have the knowledge or the resources to do it. What's that next big important thing that you are avoiding? And how can we help get you started, give you some momentum to get going on that big, scary thing? And what steps are you going to take today to reach your goals of becoming a doctor of physical therapy? Or for Jocelyn, figuring out if this is the profession that you want to go into. Jocelyn, we're going to talk a lot about observation hours today. I think for you, that's one of the most important things that you need to do these next few months is try to get in and do some shadowing with a physical therapist and see if this is something that really excites you, or if you're, and whether that's shadowing physical therapists, PAs, whatever other professions you're interested in looking into, get out there and see what they actually do instead of reading about how nice their benefits and their salary are, right? Like see what the day-to-day looks like in whatever it is that you're deciding to set your career goals towards. Okay. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pull up something right here. For those of you who are new, or maybe you just came in off of an Instagram ad that we had, this is our free application assessment and what if calculator. You can download this for free by clicking on the button for the offer that's up right now. If you haven't already, I know many of you have, but this is a very easy way for you to take a quick snapshot and look at where your application is and to see what things you need to work on. This is not an indictment of, well, I should or shouldn't apply to physical therapy school, right? Or like, oh, you're a bad applicant. Like that's not the purpose of it. It is very everything we do here at Physical Therapy Application Coaches, see where you're at, figure out where you need to go. And that's what this calculator is for. It's to help guide and direct your thoughts and your actions, so that way you know what you need to work on. So highly recommend, if you haven't already downloaded it, you're not on our email list, you're not on Instagram, or at least you're not following consistently on Instagram, download this for free. It's going to give you a bunch of good information. And there's also a lot of videos that are linked for each of these areas in particular, if you've got questions. And I'll leave that offer up for a while. Okay, so we're going to go through the agenda, and then I'm going to kick things over to Kyle to get us started with program selection. So today, these are the different things that we're going to talk about: program selection, GPA, GRE, observation hours, references, essays, PTCAS life hacking bonus, answering your questions, and then our coaching offer that we're going to share with you guys. Okay. All right, Kyle, with that, take it away, my friend.
Perfect. Yeah, so let me go ahead and discuss some of the common myths you're going to hear about when selecting programs out there, okay? So myth number one being, I need to apply to 15 to 20 programs to have a chance to get into PT school. It's absolutely not true. It's very costly to apply to programs, guys, in case you are like in Jocelyn or Mira's stage right now. But that's with any graduate program, right? So just being targeted with how you're going to apply and what schools deserve your money is really key. Okay. So you don't need to apply to 15 to 20. We're going to touch more on that here in a little bit though. So your first program automatically costs $160. Each additional program that you apply to is another $60. So if you do the math like we did, should get $1,300 for just that cost alone. And it can just go up from there. That's not including the supplemental fees that they'll often add in, etc. Okay, so it's expensive to apply to programs. So that's the big takeaway here. Second, most common myth, I will get paid more if I attend one of the more highly ranked DPT programs. Okay, we need to put this to bed right now here for this myth. This is just simply not true. Employers are not going to care where you go to PT school. Okay, this isn't business school where if you go to one of the, like, I'll stick with University of Michigan since that's one of the more prestigious ones from where I'm around. But if you go to the Ross School and at the University of Michigan, you could get an extra pay stipend because people look at that with more value. But in PT school, they're not really looking at any kind of program as being better or worse in terms of rankings, right? You're not going to get paid more just because you go to Stanford over Central Michigan or something like where I'm at. They just want to see that you have a degree and that you have a license. Simple as that. Okay, so let's dive a little bit more into what the data shows us about selecting programs, okay? So this is a screenshot of the latest PTCAS applicant data report. As you can see, the applicants to applicant ratio, or the average number of programs that an applicant applies to, is right around 6. So we want you to keep that magic number in mind going forward. If you hear people telling you that you need to apply to 15 or 20 programs, it's just simply not true, and the data backs us up on that. Okay, so here are some action items. What can you do right now if you're getting ready to apply this cycle, like Benson or like B is looking into potentially applying as well? So what we recommend is start out by making a list of 10 to 15. Now, you're not going to be applying to all 15 of these, but when you're doing this list, make sure you're looking at schools that are cost effective, both in terms of the tuition and the cost of living of the town or city that you're living in. And then the next probably most important metric is your NPTE pass rate. The NPTE is the National Physical Therapy Exam. It's your boards, and you need to pass that in order to get your license and practice as a physical therapist. So try not to go to a school that is not getting you those pass rates, right? That would be directly the opposite of why you're attending school. You want to be able to get a job, right? And if you can't pass your license exam, then you're not getting a job. So that's a very important metric to look at. So when you're looking at these numbers, that's the first big two. But then you're also going to start looking at the statistics of the program itself and what other students are getting accepted in terms of numbers. So the numbers being your GPA, your GRE, your observation hours. There's a bunch of them that we'll all talk about here in this webinar, but there are spreadsheets out there that compare the recent data of the average applicant accepted in that program. And then you can look at that data and compare it to where you're at today. That's why that calculator that Sean put up is so huge. You got to know your numbers, right? So then you can kind of use that as a proxy to see where you're at in terms of competitiveness. Doesn't necessarily mean that if you're below those certain numbers that you don't stand a chance in getting in. They're just averages. So keep in mind that, right? So then another big thing is Sean's YouTube channel. When I was in your shoes, Sean's YouTube channel was a huge asset to me. And if you haven't checked it out already, I highly recommend you go check it out. Specifically in this case, the YouTube series of where I should go to physical therapy school. He has a nice series walking you through everything that you should consider for this aspect. We have a question here from B. I'll try and address that here real quick. So do people typically attend a PT program in a location they plan on living permanently after school? Some people might, yes, but you don't have to by any means. If you want to attend an out-of-state program, B, and sit for a license exam back in your home state, you can totally do that, because everyone sits for the same exam. It's just you have to sit for a law exam in your specific state that you want to practice in. Specifically, I don't know if Sean has anything to add on that.
Yeah, I think it's a very common question of like applicants are wondering like, okay, well, if I pick to go to school here, does that mean I have to work here? And like, you're not a tree, right? You can get up, you can move. And one of the things that kind of just came to my mind, this will be a post or something later down the road, is I would make sure you go to school in a state where they're part of the licensure compact, because then you have reciprocity to a bunch of other states, right? Meaning that either you have, if you're their licensure examination for their state practice act has reciprocity in other states as well. Like you still have to go take it. But as far as that goes, you can look that up on the physical therapy licensure compact. But no, to keep this answer a little bit more simple. Sorry, I'm on a tangent here. You do not have to go somewhere and then determine that this is the place that you have to work. It does make sense that if you are going to go to a program, they likely have a lot of their clinical affiliations with local people. So the chances of you likely getting paired up with a local person for your clinical rotations, which that is oftentimes where most people are getting their first jobs, not always, but most of the time, then that can be a factor as well. The nice thing about physical therapy, though, is like there's a huge need for physical therapists. Like every place, like especially for outpatient orthopedics, where we need tons of people. So you can pretty much throw a dart on the map, and there's a need for someone there. There's also the benefit of potentially doing travel therapy as well to make some money and be able to go around and have experiences there. Some people say it's great to do it right out of school. Some people say it's good to get some stable practice under your feet before you're just constantly rotating. It depends on your personality perspective, but no, you don't have to attend a program where you plan on permanently living. Just go to the programs that have the best opportunities for you. And like Kyle talked about, low cost of tuition, low cost of living, high first time pass rate.
Sure.
Good question.
That's an excellent question. Excellent question. Yeah. So just continuing and finishing off the slide here, though, anything though that you really want to know about your program, specific questions, we always recommend contacting that program. Okay. Because they're going to give you the most straight up and up-to-date information regarding their program specifically. Okay. So once you've accumulated all your numbers, your GPA, your GRE, etc., then you can start to narrow down your list from that 10 to 15. We like to start broad, but we want to narrow it down. Okay. 6 to 9 programs is the sweet spot that we're looking for here. And, even then you might not apply to all of them because as we discussed, it is costly, but again, trying to taper that down to the ones that you actually feel like you want to go to. Okay. So with that, I think I'm going to be sending that back over to Sean to talk about GPA.
For sure. And for those of you who are looking at the offers that we have, I just switched the application calculator to, you guys are actually the first people to get dibs on this free resource. So Kyle, each year for the past several years, has been putting together our top 50 recommended programs that go based off of the metrics that we just gave you. He also does the legwork of identifying their average accepted class GPA and GRE scores, percentage of in versus out of state residents. Now we're making this available as a free resource for people to download to be able to determine the programs that we deem to be the best in terms of overall value. They provide low cost of tuition, high first time pass rate, and then we provide you with the statistics that are available. So you guys can download this resource for free as well. I'd highly recommend it. It's a huge way to get a jump start on programs that maybe you didn't even know existed or you weren't considering, that may open your eyes to some options that are out there, especially for those of you who are applying this upcoming summer. Get this list in hand and it'll help you determine maybe there's some other programs that you qualify for that you've met their prerequisites that you can apply to as well. So want to make that resource available to you guys. I'll leave that up there for a little bit. Highly recommend you download it. Again, that is free. The application calculator is free. All those things there. Okay. GPA myths. So I have to have a 4.0 to get into PT school. Not true. We have an applicant who recently got accepted with a 2.45 GPA. It was not without a lot of hard work and effort, but we were able to find the programs that fit that applicant's profile, and we were able to help him successfully get accepted into multiple programs. It was crazy. Like, I was probably more shocked than he was that he got into PT school. But we played the game. We played the system, and it works. And it's worked for other applicants that are in a similar situation as well as individuals who have really high GPAs and are looking for assistance with finding their programs. Kyle talked about that becoming a part of the physical therapy application coach community was one of the best professional decisions he's made, right? He doesn't say that in hyperbole, because a lot of the decisions and the conversations that he and I would have were regarding setting himself up successfully for his financial future, right? So there's a hot debate on if you pay off student loans versus don't pay off student loans, different things like that. That is up to each individual person to do the math and determine which repayment plan is the best for them and suits their needs. But either way, if you have more student loan debt, you are still going to have to pay more money collectively than if you have less. I think that's something we can all agree on. Math doesn't lie on that front, whether you're taking the minimum payments or whatever it is. So either way, that's the type of information that we're sharing and we're providing with people, is help you go back to that top 50 programs list, find a program that's less expensive and that fits your profile as an applicant. And that can change and alter the trajectory of your entire career because of the opportunities and the options that you'll have because of freed up financial resources or less stress and worry because you're strapped for your finances, different things like that. Anyways, okay. If I tanked my GPA my freshman year, I will never get into PT school. This is also not true. We've had several different applicants that we've worked with that have had horrendous start to their academic career. Kyle was one of them. I didn't want to say it for him, but he raised his hand. So there we go. And he turned around and he turned into an all-star student, right? And he showed programs that he figured out how to do college, right? How to study and how to be successful. And that's what programs are looking for. If a program lists their accepted class GPA, that number is a cutoff. This is not a cutoff. So many applicants will look at it and say, oh, their average accepted GPA was a 3.67 and I have a 3.53. I can't go to that school. No, it's an average. It's an average. There's going to be a certain number of people that are above that and a certain number of people who are below that. And then that number is right in the middle, right? So as far as that's concerned, don't freak out about the cutoffs. Use it as a litmus test. If their average accepted GPA is a 3.83 and your GPA is a 3.2, that may not be the best program for you. I'm just going to be honest, right? Doesn't mean that you can't apply there, but you may need to look at programs that are closer relatively to your GPA as far as that goes. Okay, schools don't care about your GPA. or schools only care about your GPA. Sorry. Schools only care about your GPA. This is not true, kind of true, depending on the program, right? Some programs weight your GPA very heavily. I would say, in general, most PT schools use your GPA as the heaviest weight for your application. Why is that? Because it's the largest data point that they have to look at who you are as a student. PT schools, yes, they care about who you are and what you're bringing to the table, but they are doing the application process to help them assess how risky you are to take on as a student. Okay. So if you are someone who doesn't do well in school, if they require the GRE, if you don't do well on the GRE, you haven't done observation hours, you are a relatively much more risky applicant compared to someone who does well in school, did pretty good on the GRE, has done observation hours. The likelihood of you flunking out or dropping out of the program is much higher if you don't meet the things that they're looking for compared to someone who does, right? So that's all the program's doing, is they're assessing risk because they want to maximize the tuition dollars they can squeeze out of you, right? The last one, GPA doesn't matter. There's been some pre-PT coaches, even some of the biggest names in the pre-PT coaching industry, that have championed this phrase of like, I am not my GPA. My GPA doesn't matter, right? Like, your GPA does matter. I'm sorry. I can't say this enough. And it drives me nuts when I would hear that. I'm like, you are lying to these kids. Like, they're just telling you something to make you feel better, massaging your feelings of inadequacy, right? Like, you can't, if you are going to do poorly in school, your chances of getting into physical therapy school are lower. Does it mean you can't get in? No, we had a guy with a 2.45 get in, right? There's always a pathway out. But please don't use these people who say your GPA doesn't matter as an excuse to do poorly in school. You need to do well in school. Your life will be so much easier if you do well in school. And I'm probably preaching to the choir here, because you guys are the ones who are eager and anxious to get, to boost your application, and you're probably doing well in school. Do internship hours count as observation hours? Uzu, I'm going to get to this question when we get to observation hours, but I will come back to it, okay? And I just did a post on this on Instagram as well. Okay, so those are GPA myths. Let's look at some GPA data, okay? So this is from accepted students. I know this is kind of small, but the blue graph is all of the applicants, and the gray graph is the applicants who are accepted. So the average GPA of all applicants was a 3.43. The average accepted GPA was 3.57 or 3.6. Then when you look at combined math and science GPA, which basically, because PTCAS, there's no like consistent prerequisite courses, PTCAS decided that we're going to come up with a math and science GPA area, and that's going to give us basically your prerequisite GPA for accepted students, right? Because that's your math and science courses are your prereq courses for the most part. So for all applicants who applied was a 3.2, average accepted was a 3.41, right? So that kind of just lets you know cumulative GPA average across the board for accepted students is around a 3.6. Cumulative or combined math and science GPA or pseudo prereq GPA is around a 3.4. Okay, so let's look at this applicant, okay? We're going to look at, if you were to look at changing your GPA dramatically, how could you do it, right? Your cumulative GPA, don't worry about it. It is what it is. It's a data point that you're going to continue to throw numbers on it. And unless you're really early, maybe if you're in like Myra or Jocelyn's case and you're just 2 years into school, you still have a lot of time that you can make up ground if your GPA is low for your cumulative GPA. But it's of the GPA categories, it's the one that I worry about the least, because there's little that we can do about it. The more classes we take, the bigger that number is going to, the more data points that get put in, and the less impact that each of those data points has on your cumulative GPA overall. So let's look at your prerequisite GPA and see how we can change that. All right. So this is not an actual semester. This is just using a GPA calculator online to look at how each of these areas, or how your GPA is affected by potentially retaking a class or two. Okay. So this is looking at the core prerequisites: anatomy, physiology, chemistry, physics, bio, stats, and psych. Let's say that this is my prerequisite GPA currently. It's a 3.15. Not great, right? But most PT schools allow you to retake prerequisite courses. Well, all of them allow you to retake them. Sorry, they all do. But it's a matter of how they calculate the retake. Is the retake taken as an average, or do they just take the higher score? Most programs that we have been paying attention to see that applicants want, they want to give applicants a fair chance to change up their application, in the sense of, you know what, maybe you had something crazy happen in your life that semester, you took chemistry, so you can retake the course and you can get a better grade, and we'll forget the other one. We'll forget the lower grade. So let's just say I got a C- in anatomy, which is 4 credits, right? That's heavy. I wonder if I just retake that anatomy course, right? I retook a couple of courses. I retook anatomy and I believe physiology there. Yeah, I retook anatomy and physiology and Chem 1. And I didn't even have to get straight A's in them, but I got A- and B's. And it took my GPA up to a 3.45, right? That's huge. All of a sudden now you're in that competitive range with the math and science GPA of the applicants that we just looked at, right? So that's tremendous. And in terms of action items, so you want to know or calculate the following. Cumulative GPA, you should just know that it's readily available on most of the student summaries that schools will give you. Your prerequisite GPA, so anatomy, physiology, chem, physics, bio, stats, and general psychology, those would be the first ones that I would start with. Then your last 60 credit hour GPA, which is basically the last 60 graded hours of your GPA, okay? And then you can do some what-if calculations to see if you can boost your prereq and your last 60 credit hour GPA. Go online, just find a free GPA calculator and plug and chug your numbers and see how you can change these GPAs to boost your application. And then identify any prereqs that you can retake and go from there. And you can go back to using the free calculator. I'll also have links to those downloads sent out with the webinar as well. So you can go back and you can play around with those numbers also. All right, Kyle, GRE.
All right, the dreaded GRE, probably the least favorite part about applying personally, but got to do it for some of them, right? So let's talk about it. Me and the GRE, we go way back, and I have not the best opinion of the GRE, but the best of news that I can give you is the GRE is starting to be required less by PT programs. We're going to talk about that here coming soon. But let's talk about the myths that are associated with this dreadful test. So every DPT program requires you to take the GRE. As I just alluded to, no, that's not the case. In fact, according to one of Sean's posts lately, I would say within the last month or so he posted, I think it's around 25% of programs do not require the GRE, which is very awesome to see. Anyone who knows anything about the GRE knows that it's just like kind of a watered down SAT for college students in a way. So if you are good at standardized tests, that's great, but it seems like most of America is not. So who really knows if it's really the best predictor of grad school success? And I think a lot of PT schools are coming to that conclusion. Myth number 2, every DPT program weighs your GRE score the same. This is kind of like GPA, like Sean was talking about. Not every school is going to look at any of these numbers the same, to be honest with you. Some will place more value on one compared to the other. So if you have a bad GRE score, don't necessarily feel like that's going to discourage you from applying to any programs. Myth number 3, if I don't get a 300 on the GRE, I can't get into PT school. So this is just not true either. I feel like this was more true back in the early 2000s when PT school was really the next big thing, so to speak. But again, there's just been a trend of declining GRE test results scores average wise over the years. So A 300, it's a great score if you're getting around there. We always say shoot for that. But if you don't, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't get into PT school. I'll be the first to tell you I didn't get a 300 on the GRE, and I got into 3 out of 5. So it's definitely possible for you to do well in the PT school application process without getting a 300. Myth number 4, I have to sign up for expensive prep materials to do well in the GRE. This is one of the bigger pet peeves with me whenever I'm talking about this slide. There's all, just like the SAT or the ACT in high school, people are always looking for these prep courses that charge you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to do well on these courses. And you just simply don't need to spend that much money on this test. We here at Physical Therapy Application Coach have come up with what we believe are the best resources to study for this test at a very cost-efficient way. So if you ride with us, we can definitely provide you with those resources, and you'll periodically see our posts about this on our social media as well. So this is another screenshot of the most recent applicant data pool on GRE statistics. Now, these statistics here are in percentages, which correlate to your scores. Now, we have a slide coming up here which shows what a 50% equates to in terms of like a 150 type of scale. Okay, so we'll show you that here in a little bit. But as you can see, 50% here, dead average. So you'll see here on the graphs, verbal scores for the average applicant that's accepted, scoring just above average, right? Qualitative, which is more like your math aspect of the GRE, is below average. So you see, you don't even have to be an average GRE score to do well in PT school. And then analytical writing, which is like writing essays, that's just above average. So this is the table that I was talking about. So on the left column there, you've got the score in terms of what you'll see from your score report and what that translates into in terms of a percentage. Okay, so like I said earlier before, 50% dead average. If you're higher than that, then you're above average. Below that, below average. Okay. So a 153 in this case, for example, would translate into about a 58 on the verbal section, but that's not the same as what it would be on the qualitative section. So just keep that in mind, that a 158 on a verbal does not mean the same thing as a 158 on the qualitative. Okay, each are different. But again, we want you to do as best as you can on this test, guys. Okay, get this thing done. Make sure that you don't take it lightly. That was a mistake I think we see a lot of people do, is they will take this thing too lightly, and you can't. This thing's a beast of a test, and like I said, you got to prepare adequately because it is still a major factor, and 3/4 of schools are still requiring it, so there's a chance that you're going to have to deal with this. Okay, so what should you be shooting for? So with, we just said, get the highest score you can, but that being said, there's some general guidelines. So if you're looking for your verbal score, you're looking for greater than a 152, which is just higher than average, and qualitative over a 154, which is still below average, and then an analytical writing of 4+, which is just above average. Okay, so these are totally doable. And the best thing I always tell applicants whenever they're taking the GRE is, if you have a bad test day, you can always retake the thing. But you know, it is costly, so make sure that you can just get this thing done, study effectively. You know, if this is something you still have to do, look into, you know, dedicating yourself to some of the action items I'm about to just talk about here in the next slide, to best prepare you for getting through this thing as easy as you can. Okay. So that brings me to the action items. But let me talk here. Jocelyn has a question. When are you supposed to take the GRE? So the ideal time is to take it in between your junior and senior year, your 3rd and 4th year of college, because that's when you're going to be applying. I don't know if Sean has anything else on that.
Yeah, so Jocelyn, that's a good question. I think what Kyle is referencing is when it's probably the most logical time to take it and when most applicants do take it. but GRE scores are good for up to 5 years. So as a result of that, you could take it anytime within that a 5-year span of when you're applying to PT school. So if you have a semester or a period of time that you've like, you know what, I'm going to have more time, I could potentially study and take the GRE. It's not like there's any class that you're going to take in college that's going to prepare you for the GRE more so than another. It's really just kind of gearing yourself to be prepared for the test. So the most common time to take it is usually a few months before you actually apply. May is usually a pretty popular time for applicants to take it just in case they need to retake it because you have to wait. How long is it? 21 days? Something like that?
21, 27,
days,
something like that.
Before you can retake the GRE. So May is the May before you apply is a good time to take it, but you can take it anytime within 5 years before you apply and your scores will still be good if you do well. So good question, Jocelyn. And Uzo, don't worry. I have your question. We'll get to it at the next section once Kyle's done with these action items.
Perfect. Yeah. So touching on what we recommend to prepare for the GRE to be competitive. So we want you to go ahead and first, before you start studying anything, take a practice test. Okay. Take a free practice test, not paid for. And this is like a proxy to see what are you good at and what are you weak at right now. There's bound to be something that everyone's weak at. If you knock it out of the park, then that's great. Maybe you don't have to study as long, or if you do poorly, then you know that you have to dedicate more time to your studying efforts. So take a practice test, and then we are going to look at your score report after that practice test and review what you're bad at. Okay. Then you're just going to tailor your study plan to address that area of weakness. Okay. And then a big thing with everything that is GRE is look for people that have recently taken this test. Okay. Find people in your pre-PT club, in your college, in your classes, family members, friends that have taken the GRE and have leftover study materials that you can use, because as we've mentioned 1,000 times, it is expensive. Okay. So if you can get people that have unused resources or unused free practice tests, that can be an invaluable resource if they'll let you have them. And then I'm going to kick it back over to Sean for observation hours.
All right. Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah.
All right. Observation hours myths. I need to have 1,000 hours to be a competitive applicant. Don't know where this number came from, but it's not true. And we'll give you our recommendation on the next slide. Quantity of hours is more important than quality of hours. Also not true. Observation hours can't make up for weak points in my GPA and GRE scores. Yes, they can. We can use solid observation hours to plug the hole in the boat if you've got some weak points. And the same is true for your GPA and your GRE scores. You can all kind of, they all work together to help get your application safely to where it needs to be. So Uzo, I'm going to address your question. So we also have a post that we just made on Instagram. I think it was yesterday. It was yesterday. So you can go back in that one and there's a little bit more detail, but essentially if you have internships hours and you are being supervised by a physical therapist doing patient care, then yes, they count as observation hours. Even if you're getting school credit for it, as long as you have hours that you're being supervised by a licensed physical therapist, that counts. If you have an internship where you're working as a PT tech, that counts. It's the same thing as being paid as a tech, right? So those do count. And hope that's helpful. If you got any other questions, let me know. Okay, observation hours. Our recommendations are to have 300 to 500 hours spread across 4 to 6 different settings. These settings can include outpatient, inpatient, which could be broken down into acute, subacute, or skilled nursing facility, home health, pediatrics, or neurological settings. And then diversity of hours is more important than the quantity of hours, okay? So if we look at these two different applicants, and we had a pretty popular post about this on Instagram as well. Is it better to have an applicant who has 1,000 hours of outpatient orthopedics, or to have another applicant that has 300 total hours, but it's spread out between 200 outpatient ortho, 50 inpatient, 25 home health, and 25 pediatrics, right? The applicant number 2 has a broader scope of the full area of physical therapy compared to applicant number 1, who only understands outpatient orthopedics. So as a PT school, we want someone who is looking at the whole picture of what physical therapy has to offer, as opposed to someone who has 1,000 hours. Now, this is assuming these applicants are exactly the same, and every program is a little bit different, but in general, what we've seen is you don't have to worry about maxing out the total number of hours. If you have a solid number of hours are going to be from outpatient orthopedics, that's where the majority of your hours are going to come from because it's easiest to get. And then on top of that, you sprinkle some layers of some inpatient, home health, pediatrics, neurological. You could do a wellness. It could be a workers' compensation area of discipline. You could do hippotherapy. There's all kinds of different disciplines. But again, you have to be supervised or observing with a licensed physical therapist as far as that goes for those to count as observation hours. Okay, action items. If you have observation hours, make sure they are logged and organized. Reach out to the PTs that supervise you and make sure they remember you and are willing to verify your hours within the next few months. You're going to send out a hours verification request to these PTs. That's why you want to ask them that via PTCAS. And then make a game plan between now and then to obtain as many hours in as many settings as you can. If you feel like your observation hour numbers are below the ones I just gave you, you have to ask yourself, do I have time to do that? Do I have the means to do that? Right? The 300 to 500 is an area that we find applicants comfortably are able to be confident with the observation hours that they have. There are PT schools that say they have no observation hour requirements anymore because they know that there's some areas where they have significant restrictions due to COVID still. And so as a result of that, it's harder for these applicants to get in. But because most of the country is kind of back online and is allowing more people to get in and do observation hours, then you should be able to get in and observe in these different settings, depending on where you live. Remember that diversity of hours means more than the total number of hours that you have. Show that you've got a good grasp of the full scope of the profession instead of just having as many hours as possible. Okay, Kyle, references.
Perfect. Yeah. So let's talk about references, letters of recommendation, as they're often called as well, and the common myths associated with them. So myth number one, PTCAS allows me to enter 4 references. So not anymore. These used to be true. So if you've been talking to people who are just slightly older than you and have went through the same thing, this is no longer the case. They now allow you to upload 5. Okay, so keep that number in mind. Myth number 2, there is no difference between asking someone to write me a letter of recommendation versus asking to write a strong letter of recommendation. So there is a big difference between asking someone to write me a letter of recommendation and a strong letter of recommendation. I'm going to be touching on this a little bit, but Sean has a nice YouTube video, a couple of videos actually, walking you through what the person that you're requesting the reference from sees on their end of the computer screen. And there's actually an option that they can pick where they do not recommend you. You do not want that picked for you, right? So that's like an automatic rejection, right? Anybody who gets that, they're just done. So pick your references wisely and make sure that they know you well enough to write you a strong letter. So we'll touch more on how to get a strong letter versus a normal letter here in a little bit though. Myth number 3, I can wait till the last minute to ask a reference for a letter of recommendation or to be a reference for me. This is probably one of those action items that you want to be thinking about right now. If you're thinking about applying right now, is come up with a list of people that could write you a letter and get a hold of them ASAP, right? Because people are busy. Sean knows this. I mean, he's got a family, he's got a job, he's got a business. If someone wants to ask him for a letter, they better give him some time, to get that letter written, because if they say, hey, Sean, I need this letter tomorrow, it's probably not going to happen, right? And it just shows this, it's like disingenuous for you to make such a request anyway. You have to respect people's time. So get on that early and start to make those connections when you can. And then final myth that we're going to be talking about is PTCAS does not move the location of the references on the application. So this has changed. And this is where I, once again, will kick it back to Sean's YouTube channel. He's got the entire walkthrough on where the reference section is now, but essentially it's just within the specific programs. But I just had to summarize it here on the webinar. It's in the program specific areas, but in case you don't know how to get there, check out the video and he'll walk you right to it. Okay, so here is what I was just kind of touching on. PTCAS allows you to upload 5 references, not just 4. So if you want to ask someone to be a reference, ask them early. People are busy. So what should your distribution be of references? Okay, you ideally, in our opinion, you should get 2 from PTs, 1 from a science professor, 1 from a supervisor or manager or coworker outside of physical therapy. So think of any job or maybe volunteering experience that you've had on that. And then 1 from anyone else. So this is like your wild card. You can pick who you want from this, who will write you a strong letter. Okay. So consider providing your references with a copy of your resume and a brag sheet that contains a list of highlights of you as a person and your time interacting with that reference. So essentially what this means is this is how you get your strong letter compared to just a normal letter. Okay. You may feel like you've had a great relationship working with somebody. Okay. And that's great. You very well probably do. But you're essentially, by providing them your resume, by providing them a brag sheet about you, it gives them a little bit more ammo for them to use when writing your letter, right? They may learn things about you that they didn't even know about you until you provided them with that sheet, right? And that's okay. You know, I think some people feel like that can be a little bit outlandish for people to do that, but it's to your advantage, right? And most references will actually appreciate that aspect of getting that extra information to supplement their writing process. So that's a huge tidbit here from physical therapy application coach. So use yourself a brag sheet if you can. And then, as I touched on just last, PTCAS has moved the location of the references in the application to under like the specific program tab. So check out Sean's video on that. He'll show you right where to go. Okay, so what can you guys do right now? So you need to identify and contact your reference ASAP. Get on that today. Determine how many references or your programs of interest will allow you to upload. So we will have that linked in the chat for the program comparisons on the APTA directory, and that will show you what programs allow you to do as certain references, right? So some allow you to do 3, some allow you to do the maximum of 5. Sean just linked it there for everybody to see. So click on that and check that out, and it'll allow you to sort of tailor what references you want to dedicate to each program. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful for you guys. Next, ask each reference what you need to do to get a strong letter. This is also a great tip, right? Beyond the brag sheet and stuff like that, maybe there's things that they still want to see you do in whatever role that you have with this person. Maybe you're an employee, maybe you're shadowing and you're involved as a student in the clinic, and they want to see more out of you. Just simply asking the question, what do you want to see from me to get a strong letter, can save you a lot of time and hassle, and potentially getting that dreaded selection on their end that they don't recommend you. So again, avoid that at all costs. Update your resume to share with your references. If you haven't, make sure you're updating your resume yearly. That's just a pretty basic 101 job searching thing, or just tip in general. Make sure you're keeping your resume updated. And then start putting together a brag sheet. Again, you can start doing that today, and watch Sean's YouTube series on how to seek out and obtain quality letters of recommendation.
Thanks, Kyle.
All right. Yeah, absolutely.
And that video last year was our most popular video, actually. So I never would have known that, but like it was a huge concern for a lot of people. And we actually have, even this year, we're going to take it a step further and help you we're going to walk you through like the whole process from A to B, and to get you streamlined as possible. So that way you are making sure you can reuse references instead of just sending out a million of reference requests, because the system is a little clunky as far as that goes. So keep your eyes peeled via Instagram or our email newsletter if you haven't signed up for that. I'll be sure to include the link in that before we get ready to head out. But B, the moment that you have been waiting for, this whole webinar is here for you, right? Application, essay, myths. PTCAS essay prompt is the same every year. Not true. No one is going to actually read my essay, so I'm not going to worry about it. This is also not true. When I was interviewing people at NAU, I read their essays. Of the 17 people that we were interviewing, only 2 of the essays were good. The rest of them were just useless. It was a waste of time, honestly. And I felt bad for those people because the 2 people who wrote really good essays, when they walked into the room, I was more excited to talk to them. And they already had a couple points head start, if you will, compared to other applicants. So it does make a difference. And then I can't tell you how many applicants we've had between Kyle and myself that we've worked with that have said, my essay was the reason I got an interview invite or the reason I got accepted into PT school. And the program, the people at the program told me that. And that's just music to our ears because that's how we know that the system that we work through works, right? There's nothing I can do to start working on my essay until I know the prompt. This is also not true. There's some things that we can't do, but there's a lot of stuff that we can do while we're waiting for that prompt to come out. My essay can't make up for weaknesses in my GPA, GRE, or observation hours. We talked about this with observation hours. We can plug holes with your essay, using your essay from these other areas as well. So it definitely can make up for things and provide some context into who you are as an individual. Okay, so for the first time in PTCAS essay history, the prompt was the same for 3 years in a row. It's crazy, right? And it's a super long, confusing prompt. I've had it for so long. I'm sick of it. So I hope they change it just for that reason. But previously, the prompt changed every 2 years. And all the previous prompts have basically the exact same theme. They want you to share your story about what's special or unique about you and what strengths, character attributes, personality traits do you have that are going to help you be a successful physical therapist. That's what they all come down to, right? Over the past 10 years, I know I've personally reviewed over 1,200 essays, if not closer to 1,500. And this is the first chance that a program has to get to know you as a person. And essays do make up for weaknesses in your application. And we've had 4 essay prompts while I've been coaching, right? And they all have the same objectives. Tell me your story. What skills, strengths, attributes do you have that'll empower you to be a great PT? Essay action items. Kyle, if you wouldn't mind going to the website and getting the email list under free stuff and just put that link in the chat for me while I'm working through this. That'd be great. Thank you.
You betcha. Yep.
Okay. So essay action items. You're going to identify your greatest strengths, characteristics, and attributes. You can also create an inventory of personally meaningful experiences that you've had over the last 3 to 5 years that showcase your strengths as a person. And do some research on programs that you know you want to apply to and ask if their supplemental essay prompts stay the same or if they change. Because if they stay the same, guess what? You can start working on those right away. And then we just have to wait for the PTCAS essay prompt. Will it be the same this year? I don't know. Maybe if that's the case, it'd be the same for 4 years in a row. But again, this last cycle, they proved us wrong and they deviated from the script. And that's fine. They can do whatever they want. They're PTCAS, right? Then keep your eyes peeled for when we announce our free PTCAS essay webinar. This is our biggest event of the year. And I think of all the services that we provide, essay coaching is the most popular by a mile because people have done there's lots of information out there about the application and how to be successful. I would argue that our process is the best that's out there. And then in addition to that, our essay services are the best. I know that. I can confirm that, right? In terms of results, cost, and the outcome, the quality of the product that you get, it's phenomenal compared to all of our competitors. And it's the thing that I know that we stand far and above everybody else as far as that goes. So you definitely are going to want to come to our PTCAS webinar, PTCAS essay webinar. It'll be held middle of June, end of June, early July. Once the application opens, we'll get that rolling. And then if you've done everything that we've talked about up until this point of the webinar, then you can start working on your essays. But otherwise, focus on your program selection, your GPA, your GRE, observation hours, getting your references ready to go. So that way, when you show up to PTCAS, you've done all the legwork so you can be successful, and then you can start working on your essay as far as that goes. Don't put the cart before the horse as far as that goes. Like, you've got to do these baby steps first and make sure you're doing that before you're like, oh, I'm going to work on my essay. I think it's good if you want to work on your essay, but if you haven't done all these other things that we listed, pump the brakes, do those, and then come back to your essay. Okay. Last thing I want to talk about, if you've done everything and then you do your essay and then you maybe want to get a little bit of a head start on PTCAS. So B, I'm mainly talking to you. You can go into PTCAS and enter some information early, so that way you can have this information carry over. Each year, PTCAS wipes their database clean, but allows some entered information to carry over as a reapplicant, right? So even if you've never applied, if you've never pressed submit to any application, they're going to keep some of this data in there so you don't have to input it again. Now, how do we know all of this information? Because every year I have a PTCAS dummy account that I keep open so I can kind of see what's different and make some videos and things like that. And I entered some information, and then when I opened up my application, when the new application cycle opened, then I was able to see, they said, okay, we are going to pull information from all of these areas. And so this is what this is, the recommendations here, okay? All sections under personal information will be carried forward. So you can enter all that stuff and then not have to worry about it. All sections under academic history will be carried forward as well. And 3 sections under supporting information. So these are your experiences, your achievements, and your licenses and certifications. Those will carry forward. Everything else is going to get wiped out of the system. So this includes your observation hours, your references, your essay, things like that. So please don't put those pieces of information in, because you will just have to input them again as well. So focus on these areas as well. Okay. All right. In summary, right? Because we're already going over. I don't know how we got to be an hour and 15 minutes, but I digress. In summary, if we were going to take everything we said and put it into one slide, this is what their summary would be. Program selection, have a list of 10 to 15 schools that you're considering applying to, and then eventually narrow that down to 6 to 9 programs that you're actually going to apply to. GPA, know your numbers. Figure out if you can boost your prereq GPA and your last 60 credit hour GPA. GRE, take practice tests. Let data drive your decisions for when you're going to take the test, what you need to study, all those type of things. Observation hours, 3-5-4-6 rule, 300 to 500 hours, spread across 4 to 6 different settings. Remember, diversity over quantity of hours. References, you can have a maximum of 5, but use that program, the PTCAS program directory, to determine how many references each of those programs will allow you to upload. The system will allow you to upload 5, but each program may be different with the number of references they may allow you to upload and what those references can be. Our recommendation is to cover your bases, to have everything that you need for all programs. Would be 2 from licensed physical therapists, 1 from a science professor, 1 from someone outside of physical therapy who's been a boss, supervisor, coworker, and then 1 from the next best available person from whatever category you decide. And then essays, focus on stories and your own personal strengths and attributes. And you can make an inventory of those and have those ready to go. PTCAS, you can enter all the information under personal info, academic history, experiences, achievements, licenses and certifications in supplementals. Okay. All right. That was like drinking from a fire hose. There's a lot of information. If you guys need to, you can go back and watch the replays to be able to glean all of those things. But with all that being said, let's get your questions. What else are you guys wondering about regarding anything related to pre-PT that we either you would like us to clarify from what we did cover, or things that we didn't cover that you still have questions about? Go ahead and type them in the chat box. You're doing great. We're getting close to wrapping up here in just a little bit. Good. Still got that coaching offer to share with you guys. And you guys had really good questions along the way as well. Good things to ask about. So props there. You could be having webinar fatigue.
Could be.
Pooped out.
Even if it's anything about the profession, guys, that if you guys are still prospective looking into the profession, anything, we're an open book. Okay, so how early should you be asking someone to write a reference for you? So Jocelyn, since you're a bit early to the game with it, that you can start doing that anytime. Like if you have like an employer or you're working in a clinic and you have a good relationship with that person and you're still seeing yourself apply to PT school in the future, then I would say, yeah, you can get on it super early if you want to. If you say, yeah, I see you as a potential reference I want to use in the future, yeah, don't be afraid to reach out and ask them. And also don't be afraid to ask how you can continue to improve, as a student and as an applicant in their eyes, so that they can write you a killer letter of recommendation.
That's good. Kyle, nice job with that. I think, Jocelyn, the one thing I would add would be that if you are going to ask them early and there's going to be a gap of time between when you're actually asking for the reference, a part of asking, what do I need to do to get a strong letter recommendation from you, would be, how would you like us to stay in contact? Right. So do they want you to kind of touch base with them quarterly, or, they'll let you decide what's enough to kind of keep their memory jogged. But if you like someone and you hit it off with them and you've got a good relationship and you determine that you want to get a strong letter from them and they say they'd be happy to write you a strong letter, then you've got to have some way to keep that relationship warm. Because if you're not applying for another year and a half after you meet them, chances are they may not remember everything about the time that you were with them. So you probably need to make sure that you've got a good brag sheet ready to go. You need to make sure that you're having contact with them and kind of remaining on the forefront of their mind. Or I think the easiest way to do it would be just to have an extended relationship. So if you're going to do shadowing hours, just shadow there for a year and a half, even if it's just once a week or something like that. The more consistently you can be in their life, if it's a PT, right, the more likely they are to remember you as far as that goes. And then just go above and beyond. So that way they won't be like, oh yeah, who's Jocelyn? Oh yeah, Jocelyn came in. She was always great with patients. She worked really hard. She went above and beyond. She did a bunch of stuff for free. If you're observing, like you help out with cleaning tables, you help do laundry, you bring equipment, like you're doing what you can to be of service to them, as far as that goes. Okay. So Myra has one. Other than GPA, essays, and references, are there any other extracurricular experiences or leadership factors that schools look for when reviewing applications? So Myra, yes, they definitely do. Again, shameless plug for our Instagram, because this was something we just posted this week. This was a really popular post, was our top 4 recommendations for extracurricular activities, which if we were to sum that up, pre-PT club leadership is number 1. Working as some type of a research assistant would be number 2. Some type of community outreach, so this is any type of service organization in the community, would be number 3. And then number 4 would be student government. Those are the 4 that we recommend. And these, it's not like in one of the videos that I talk about with extracurricular activities, you don't want to be gathering extracurriculars like they are coins in a video game, right? You want to show that you've been involved with things for a long period of time and that you've added value, instead of saying, oh, I was in like every club. I was a part of all these service organizations, because we all know that time is limited. So there's only so much time that you have to devote to these things, as far as that goes. So those are the things that we recommend: is pre-PT club leadership, research assistant, community outreach, and then student government, because they give you a relationship with people over an extended period of time. They're good things that are top of mind, and they also allow you to network with a lot of people, and get to know other people that can help you with letters of recommendation or to get observation hours, different things like that. Kyle, do you have anything you want to add to extracurriculars?
No, I think you covered that pretty good.
Okay. B, can you give some examples of stories or strengths for the personal statement essay? Yeah, B. So I think in your case, you would need to look at what are some unique skills or attributes that you are bringing to the table, right? Like, what are some things that what have you done? And sometimes it's easier to go look at your experiences first. So, B, in your instance, I know that you've been the pre-PT club president at your school, right? What things have you done there that have been exceptional or that have added value to the lives of other people? And you can kind of work backwards. So I look at the things that you've been involved in and doing. A lot of people will talk about like humanitarian experiences or service or shadowing experiences where they're really connected with the patient, different things like that. And our PTCAS Essay webinar will give you a lot more detail about those things as well. But start making your list. And sometimes if you're like a lot of pre-PTs and you have a hard time identifying what's awesome about you as a person, then you may ask your friends or your family members, what do you think are my greatest strengths or characteristics or attributes as a person? And then they can give you a more objective opinion as someone who's not yourself. But it is good for you to be able to look at yourself and say, I am good at this. This is something I'm valuable at, or this is what I'm bringing to the table. Because if you can't sell yourself, you're going to have a hard time selling yourself to other programs, right? Like you need to be able to sell who you are as a person to be successful in that sense. Kyle, you want to take Uzo's question?
Sure. Yeah. So would your college team coach be an example of a supervisor who can speak on our professional attributes for a letter of rec? Absolutely. Yeah. I think if you've been having a significant college career in athletics and you have a good relationship with your coach, that's a key, because I do know a lot of people that are going through the college athletic system and maybe not have as great of a relationship with a coach. So I'll leave that up to you, Uzo, to see if you feel like you have a good relationship with your coach, then by all means, yeah, I think that would be an option.
Yeah, Uzo, I think I've had applicants ask that, like, do you think it's a good idea? I'm going to say, do you think your college athletics coach has a better idea of who you are as a person compared to your science professor who's probably met you a handful of times? For sure. You're with your coach hours every day. They know what your work ethic is like and what you bring to the table, what you're like in the locker room, like all that stuff. So college coaches are gold if you have a great relationship with them. Okay, B. So B, one thing I'll recommend, even with the coaching package that we have coming up, you've got a lot of great things in terms of organization that I think if we could get into the weeds and look specifically at what you're looking at, it would be a really valuable experience for you. I'm not just saying that. Like, we can speak about these generalities, but in terms of like giving you a list of stuff to get ready for your essay and also like helping you get your resume prioritized, editing that, making sure that looks good. We'll talk about the coaching offer in just a bit, but I think that would be a good opportunity. And again, I'm not just saying that, but those are extra things that we offer. Is we can help you get a resume. We can help you get a brag sheet. We can help you get your essay questions lined up and ready to go. Anything that we covered today is a part of the coaching offer that we're going to give you. So I definitely think there's some value to be had. But prioritizing things on your resume, I would look at it from the perspective of you need to rank everything that's on there and determine, is this what would be the most important to a physical therapy school? So the things that we talked about in terms of extracurricular activities, pre-PT club leadership, research assistant, community outreach, and student government. If those things are on your resume, great. And then you have to look at, okay, if I'm having a hard time prioritizing, which things have I been a part of the longest? Which things have I had the most impact or the most leadership? Your resume shouldn't be like, it's not like a CV for academia where the more you have on it, the better you are. Your resume needs to be a quick snapshot. And I know you've been following a lot of our stuff on Instagram, B, but keeping it to one page is ideal. And we can help you if you're really struggling to figure out what's most important and what's not, because it can be hard. And having that extra set of eyes can really be helpful. Okay, guys, Good questions. Those were all really good. Appreciate you guys asking. We're going to go on and talk about a coaching offer that we have. Kyle and I are going to kind of bounce back and forth here and share some of this information. Information is good. The things that we've shared with you today, knowledge is good, but action and accountability are the things that lead to results. And having someone to give you direction, to hold you accountable, is the number one way to help you maximize your chances for acceptance into a DPT program this summer. Okay. And this goes for even for Jocelyn and Myra. If you guys are feeling like, I've got this big ocean in front of me and I want to make sure I'm headed in the right direction, getting your rudder set in the right direction will make a huge difference. And giving you a plan that you can execute over the next year can be huge. So there really isn't anyone, regardless of where you're at in this process, that wouldn't be a good candidate for this coaching offer that we're going to share with you guys.
Sure, guys. So just as a little tidbit, everything on this screen is what you're going to get from both Sean and I with any of our coaching services, right? And I just got to make a plug again for everybody who did show up today, especially those of you who have showed up super early in your educational journey. I don't get into 3 out of 5 programs without going through this coaching. I just don't. Okay. And that's my bias aside, right? So we can provide that all to you here, and we're going to be your accountability partner throughout this whole journey, whatever that is. If it's a couple months, if it's a couple years, you're going to get that from Sean and I. It's very high quality stuff. And, it'll give you peace of mind moving forward that you are, as Sean said, you do have your rudder set in the right direction, right? And we've had a lot of success over the years with other applicants, and you can be part of that pool of applicants as well that have been successful.
So wouldn't it be helpful if you had a list of our top 50 programs, which could literally save you thousands of dollars, a list of programs that emphasize evaluating your last 60 credit hours of your GPA, our application calculator, which we shared with you guys, and a comprehensive list of the best free GRE prep resources available, which could save you also hundreds, if not thousands of dollars.
Okay, so wouldn't it be helpful if you had a list of DPT programs that don't require you to take the GRE, a template to help you to ask all your references for strong letters of recommendation, the most efficient and effective PTCAS checklist in the pre-PT community, 2 30-minute one-on-one coaching sessions with either Sean or myself, and exclusive deals on essay and interview coaching for future sessions when those seasons arrive. All right, you rock with us.
So guys, this coaching offer is all about investing in yourself and in your future and learning how to focus on you and what you need to be the best applicant without comparing yourself to others. This is going to help increase your likelihood of acceptance, and taking this leap could literally be one of the greatest financial decisions you've made thus far in your life.
So guys, if you go on our website right now, this is what you'll see for a price right now, but you guys won't have to pay that price because you guys showed up and you guys were on top of your game today. You wanted to get ahead. So we have the coaching offer for you guys today.
So this coaching offer, which again, this goes back to that previous slide. If you are not satisfied for any reason at all, you have a 30-day money-back guarantee with your coaching, no questions asked. You can use the promo code. Let me get this offer up here. Publish. There we go. Okay. You can use the promo code PREPT15 to get 15% off the consultation coaching package. So all of this value can be yours for a one-time payment of $153 or 2 monthly payments of just over $75. This promotion is going to last until Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and there's only 5 spots available. And you want to act quickly as these spots will get filled up. We limit the number of spots we have so we can be dialed in and be able to give you guys the maximum flexibility and availability to get the help that you need in the timeline that you need it. So thank you guys so much for coming and being dialed in. We've enjoyed talking with all of you and answering your questions. Regardless of where you're at with your pre-PT journey, there is so much value that can be had by getting involved, having a coach, having an accountability partner to make sure you execute your plan instead of just saying, wow, that was a nice webinar. They gave me a bunch of information. And then next week, you either forget things that we tell you or you say, oh, I'll do that later, right? That is my biggest fear is like we give a lot of fantastic free information on YouTube and on Instagram. And sometimes I think people, they look at how valuable the information is and then they just forget about it. And it makes me sad in terms of that people, it's not that they don't listen to us, it's that they don't do anything with it because it's like, oh, well, that's cool information. That's good to know. But they just don't act, right? And that's why we're here is to help you take your knowledge and turn it into action and to turn it into execution so you can be successful and be able to move forward in your pre-PT journey, regardless of whether you're just deciding to start physical therapy and you want to make sure that you're on track, or if you're getting ready to apply this summer, or if you're a reapplicant who's looking to get your ducks in a row so that way you can be successful this time applying. So thank you guys so much. We've really appreciated having you on and hope you have a wonderful Easter weekend. And we hope to work with all of you in the future. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.